Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about lowering the gender pay gap. I'm going to go over some historic data, which are the main factors that contribute to this gender pay gap and what can we do to lower it. First, let's start with the definition of what is the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is the difference in the amount of money between woman and man, often for the same job, expressed in the percentage of the man's earnings. Women have come a long way, considering that at the beginning of the 20th century they were not even able to vote. But it took 30 to 50 years more from that point for the women's movement to start. In June 10, 1963, President John Kennedy signed the Equal Pay Act into a law, which made it illegal for all the women to get paid less or lower for the same type of job as men. At that time, women were getting paid 59 cents to a man's dollar, and today they are getting paid 77 cents to a man's dollar, according to a study by Laurel Bowles. And it took more than 50 years for them to gain only 18 cents. But which are some of the main factors that cause this gender pay gap? There are industries that are predominated by women, usually tend to pay less than men. Maternal and paternal leave, and salary negotiation raises. Let's focus a little bit in this chart, which is by the U.S. Department of Commerce, Economics, and Statistics Administration. And we can see that the number of women in science, technology, and engineering and math is still very low compared to men working in these industries. And as we know, these are higher paid jobs. But what we also see from this chart is that it doesn't matter if we talk about industries that are predominated by men or women, this gap is always there. And as Sean Byrne states in his article, this gender gap should concern all of us because it's the evidence that we do not have a gender equal society. Another main reasons or factor that contributes to this gap would be parental leave. As we see in this chart, mothers more than fathers experience more career interruption. The first one is that mothers get 42% of mothers get reduced hours to compare with only 28% of fathers, and 39% of mothers take a significant time off to compare with only 24% of fathers, and so on. I have to also mention that the United States is one of the few countries in the whole world that does not guarantee parental leave. Another very important reason that affects this wage gap would be salary negotiation and raises. As a matter of fact, women ask less often than men for raises throughout their career, and they tend to not negotiate their salaries as much as men. And this creates a cumulative effect. By the age of 65, the average woman will have lost $431,000 over her lifetime as a result of this earning gap. But what can we actually do to lower this gap? One of the main things would be making policies and necessary legislative changes for both paternity and maternity leave. According to a study made by Clark and Frey, paid parental leave and subsidized childcare would help to get and keep women more in the workforce, would contribute to the economic growth, would get the children more health benefits, and give the parents the option to choose their work-life balance. As for now, California is the only state that guarantees paid maternity leave, as in fact it should be a federal program ensuring nationwide paid parental leave, both maternity and paternity. The evidence analyzed by Adama, Clark, and Frey shows that paid family leave increases the likelihood of women to work even before childbirth, but also facilitating their return to the same job. What else can we do to lower this gap? Another step would be the transparency of wages. Right now, there is a federal law that requires wage transparency for all federal employees. This law did not eliminate this gap, but it actually helped lower it. What if we have this law applied to all the industries in all private companies and corporations? This would not only lower this gap, but would facilitate all women to ask for raises more often and actually negotiate their salary accordingly to their market rate. And another step would be subsidized and more affordable childcare. As we know, one way of attracting companies to offer paid maternity and paternity leave would be offering them a tax break for all the companies that actually do offer this kind of programs. And also subsidized and more affordable childcare would be very helpful, especially with low income families, and would help a lot of women that actually take very low pay jobs or part-time jobs just to be flexible for their child rearing. And lastly, as we mentioned at the beginning, there are not a lot of women working in the STEM jobs, so offering lower college tuition or scholarships for women who study STEM majors would be an incentive for more of them to go towards these majors. But what I want all of you to remember from this is that the gender pay gap does not affect only women, it affects the society as a whole. Lower gender pay gap means lower poverty line, high quality life, and more access to childcare and higher quality education. And I want to conclude all this with a quote in one study by Valerie Martinelli. She says that gains that women could make through equal pay could contribute in the gains in the GDP at a rate equivalent to adding a state the size of Virginia. Each woman, including those that would gain nothing, would actually earn $6,251 more annually on average. This would reduce poverty line by half for all families with working women as well as working women who live alone. It's time to close the gender pay gap. Thank you.